I promised to sing in this session, but I don't think I'm going to have time. I know. Well, I was gonna, because I was telling everybody how much I loved you both, and how you were sunshine to me, made my heart happy. So I was gonna say, I've got sunshine on a cloudy day, and we'll save you. I'll spare you the rest. So. These ladies are amazing, and they were friends of mine for various reasons and times in my career. I feel like I've known them my whole life, and it's good to be back with them. And it's really good to be with you all. We've had an amazing conference. So I love it with these lead slides when people put pictures of themselves on there, and like you're sitting in front of them. I'm like, here's a picture of me, and I'm going to also talk to you. We saved the picture of us to the end. It's a really cool one. So I want to talk a little bit about, because they've got so much knowledge. I think I was just put with them for I'm not sure why. But I want to talk to you about my experience in Fairfax County and how it relates to the topic we're talking about today. There's a map there of Fairfax County that shows how close we are to Washington, D.C. When I came into that system, a lot of good stuff had already been done. My predecessor worked really hard to make changes. So I don't want to make it sound like I came in on a unicorn and saved the day, but I did come into a system that was only at about 75%. And here you're outside of Washington, D.C., a resource wealthy pocket of Virginia. They really should be at 99 every day, and they're about 90 or a little bit more now. So, and that's what we work to get it to. There's the old shelter there and the new shelter. I have a picture of that. Just to kind of comparison, I started with the old one, and then we built a new one right on the same footprint. The other thing I want to share with you is there's, early in my career, I really liked what Nathan Winograd had on his, on the webpage about the life-saving difference and no-kill language. I really want to point out, I was a civilian commander in a police force. Y'all behave. And so they're like hitting each other or something. So I couldn't use the word no-kill. If I had, I would have been run out. I work for the police chief in Fairfax County. But so what we did, Kristen Arbach and Leanne Schenefeld worked really closely. We made a great team in Fairfax. We made our own poster. And I apologize for how hard it is to read. I had a really hard time finding a clear copy. But instead of saying why some shelters kill and others don't, I couldn't use that language. Plus, I wasn't comfortable with it. I had a municipal background in parks. We just changed it to a life-saving difference. Why the Fairfax County Animal Shelter succeeds. And we used all this positive language on our poster. And the police chief loved it, and the police officers and the community and politicians. And I stayed away from this is like 8 years ago, I stayed away from the NK words, right? The other photo there is a picture of the chairman of the Board of Supervisors. Sharon Bulova's on the left. In the center is Annie Yu. She was a popular TV journalist and celebrity, personality, I should say. And then Congressman, U.S. Congressman Jerry Conley has almost a perfect record on animal. Actually, he has a 100% perfect record on animal issues. And the first thing I did is start inviting them to come to functions. I was so close to Washington, D.C., so I want to take advantage of that. And some of you all could do that if you're close to your capital, or even like having your local officials come to events, present them with awards, have them come to ribbon cuttings, and give them credit for their leadership in making your shelter and your work a possibility. We were about 78%, and I knew we could do better, but I had to be careful because I was in a police department, which was really by the book, general orders, black and white, SOPs, and really thought if you're killing animals, you must be making the community safer. Another thing I did, because remember this is about effecting change, life-saving change, and how we're working with elected, appointed officials, is positive stories. This is something Kristen Arbach did really well with, and we just generated all kinds of positive stories. That top picture is the Board of Supervisors. Every chance we had, we got in front of them for a proclamation or recognition of an officer or of a community member, for a photo, and that ended up in the media. So you see, this started to generate enthusiasm. I inherited at 78% save rate. I knew we should be at 90 or better every day. But I just started doing that with generating these victories, because we were hidden. We were off in a corner, right? Shelters are built literally and figuratively on the outskirts of town. Bring it front and center and make it something to be proud of and celebrated, and have your elected and appointed officials be part of it. Whether they did a darn thing or not, you thank them for their leadership, for approving your budget, for coming to your adoption event, for just having you before them to accept a plaque about finding a dog that had been at large for a year. Down there into credibility, one thing I did, I knew I had, even though I come from a law enforcement family, I knew I wasn't sworn. So I attended, those are two police chiefs. I went to the Police Chiefs International Leadership Academy, and I was the only civilian in the room, and I went through that whole academy and got accredited through the Police Chiefs International Association, and trying to gain credibility. I went to all of the upper level commander roll calls. Even sometimes it wasn't relevant to me and it was not the best use of my time. I wanted to develop credibility among the ranks. I just want to talk about the picture in the right-hand corner. This gentleman here was the supervisor. His name is Mike Fry, and he knew the shelter should not be in the police department. He knew that it was restrictive, and it was difficult, and it was scary. It was hard work. And so when I knew I was going to leave for Austin, I spent 6 months working with him secretively behind the scenes, laying the groundwork to move the animal shelter out of the police department into a civilian arm of Fairfax County. And that happened. And I'll never get credit for that, and I don't want credit for that. And it's really, this is the first time I've ever talked about it. I've talked about it privately, but not publicly. And it was hard work, and I guess I could have gotten in a lot of trouble if I was going to stick around. But I did the right thing, and now they're not restricted. Last thing I want to talk about is Austin, Texas. I've already taken too much time. When I became the director in Austin, Texas, we had a brand new mayor and council. So the mayor and council that signed on to no-kill were no longer there. We all started at the same time together. Every day I spent in Austin, I was having to educate them about what no-kill was, because advocates in the community, sometimes people can't stop fighting. You heard Ryan Clinton talk about, you need more spay-neuter, when we spent $1 million on spay-neuter already, more than anybody else in the United States at the time. I had to educate them. How did I do that? I met with the new council members and mayor. I met with their staff monthly. If there was a problem in their district, I talked to them about it ahead of time. We put together e-folders and binders, old-fashioned binders at their front desk of all the animal issues that they got the most complaints on, community cats, wildlife, all those type of things, where they could do the FAQs and talk about what we were doing and positively, rather than having to call us and say, I've got a constituent that's really upset. They had that information already because I gave it to them. I had to anticipate what their constituents were going to come to them for. That way I wasn't always reactionary. It was hard. I was in front of them a lot, because people took it, opportunity of it to try and push back no-kill, questioning open adoptions, questioning everything you can think of. But my job was to educate and be partners with those elected officials. They were not my enemies. So there was that opportunity to create confusion when there was new elected officials, and I had to fight really hard to make sure that they understood that previous council said they were going to be no-kill, and they campaigned on it, right? The recent code change that Ryan has walked through, the session in the morning, that was a big game changer for Austin, and super important, and something you can think about in your own community when you're talking about bringing about change and working with elected officials. Last thing I wanted to say is, when I came to Austin, they were killing coyotes. Texas Wildlife Services was. It was against city ordinance. I stopped it after doing my homework and talking to people, and work with Katie really closely on this. And we stopped that. They were killing them with poison and leg hold snares and shooting them. They were also killing domestic pets and not reporting it. And now I'm happy to say the county also doesn't use Texas Wildlife Services to kill coyotes, because wildlife does matter. And so that was an important thing too. Really, how did I do it? Education, give them credit for the good stuff, work with them as if they were my partners. I wasn't afraid of them, but they were my partners that I would work with in tandem. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you. I want to turn it over to my colleagues. I've already talked too much.
No, Thank you so much. And Tawny is underplaying how hard she worked on all of the stuff that she just mentioned, but certainly that wildlife services issue with coyotes, there was something where, wildlife services was not turning over that information, and we worked for more than a year to just get the facts. And so it was incredible what Tawny was up against and what the battle that she won, and just saving not only the coyotes and the wildlife in the Austin area, but as she said, the impact on the domestic pets. So Tawny talked a lot about working with city council, both in Fairfax and in Austin, and I am lucky enough to be appointed to both the Austin Animal Advisory Commission and the San Antonio Animal Advisory Commission. So I serve on 2 municipal shelter boards in the state of Texas. They're very different, but I can tell you that the lessons that I've taken away, I want to share with all of you so that you feel empowered to go back into your communities and make sure that you are either joining those boards and having a voice, and that person on the board is the person that liaisons directly with the appointee. So in Austin, I happen to be the mayor's appointee. In San Antonio, I happen to be the appointee of a city councilman. And it's really wonderful because I have regular update meetings with all of them to let them know what the topics that people are really looking at in those cities. It helps me really stay plugged in. But on top of that, even if you don't have the time and resources to be a part of one of those boards or your local commission, staying involved and attending those meetings can really make a huge impact on your work. And usually they meet either monthly or bi-monthly, depending on where you're located. But working with them and meeting with the district appointee, that's somebody that works in your area, joining them as a resource to become a part of their working group. The coyotes were an issue that came through our commission that we formed a working group on. We've had everything from bullhook bans to cat declawing and everything come through those commissions. And so having members of the community come in and talk to us and to let us know how they feel about a certain subject matter is often determines whether or not that issue makes it all the way to the city council for a vote. So please take advantage of going into those. Build a relationship with your local officials. Invite them to tour your facilities. Invite them to come and meet some of your rescue dogs. Organize some photo ops that you're putting up on your Facebook page. Make them feel like they are a part of the work that you are doing in their community. And you, hopefully, many of you were at the awards ceremony over lunch, and you saw just how invested some of these city council members and lawmakers really become when you include them in their work, in your work. Come with a solution and not a problem. I will tell you that on both of the commissions that I serve on, the people that are most effective in getting from point A to point B are the people that come and say, this is an issue we're having, this is how we propose to solve that issue, this is what's going to happen. Because the commissions in your city, these local are volunteer-based. These are people that have full-time jobs outside of the commission, and so when you come to them and you don't just complain about something, but rather you come to them and say, look, I've talked to 4 or 5 different animal welfare groups. We all really believe that this is the path forward. It's going to give you a lot of credibility with those volunteers because they see that you've already done so much of the work yourself. Make good faith assumptions. I cannot tell you how many times as a member of these commissions that members of the public have actually been pretty nasty to us and been pretty hateful and assumed that we are up there for I don't even know what reason, but we've had a lot of kind of negative feedback over the years. And so again, the members of the community that have ultimately been successful in pushing forward change that they need have been those that have come to us and said, how can we help? We know that you have a lot on your plate. We know y'all are dealing with 25 different issues right now. What can we do to step in and help? Come with the facts. I have to say there's a group that comes almost every single time here in Austin. It's a local cat group, and I am amazed at the data that they bring with them. They come and they present every single month at our Austin Animal Advisory Commission, and they have such incredible data, and it gives them such credibility. And because of that, they have their own working group on our commission. They present every single month. We have a reoccurring update update item for the shelter to provide numbers on the CAT program, and they've been really successful in that way. And then, so just to give you a few practical ways to start off, one of them is obviously making personal contact at the local level. Do not wait until an issue has come up and there is a controversy brewing to go introduce yourself to your city council person. Make sure that they know who you are so that the moment they hear about that, they're calling you. Hey, Steve, something just came up. It came across our desk. What do you make of this? Is this something we should be concerned about? Is this something my office should be working on? Don't wait to introduce them. Don't wait to introduce yourself. Maintain contact throughout the year. When they hear good news throughout the entire year and you're sharing wonderful updates with them about what your rescue and your shelter has been doing, they are much more likely to be on your side if something happens when they've heard good news from you all year long. Invite them to take a tour of your shelter, visit your facilities. And this is a big one, and especially in our community, this is something that we have, worked a lot with both at the local and state level. If you don't know the answer to something or you don't have the facts with you, you don't have to make up an answer. You don't have to exaggerate. You don't have to answer any questions to elected officials where you don't know the answer. Be sure and just say, you know what, I don't have the answer to that question, but I absolutely will find the person who has that information and I will follow up with you. Following up, having a reason to follow up with an elected official is a good thing. Not knowing all of the answers to every single question they ask you gives you a reason to stay in touch with them because you want to follow up. It actually ends up hurting us when they have been given misinformation and they turn around and share that. It ends up hurting us in the long run. And the final thing is building your coalition. We are much stronger when we work together. I love the title of this workshop that's leading through relationships. I certainly would not have been able to get much of the stuff that I have been able to get done without the two women sitting next to me. And if it hadn't been for going up to the city, the city hall with them, up to the state house with them, I know that we would not have been successful because we are stronger together. And when we have a coalition and we're sticking together, it shows legislators that we really do have some common messaging and common goals. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Laura.
Thank you. All right. So Dr. Jefferson wanted to make sure that we discuss some tips for the elected officials that don't care about animals. What do I say to the person who doesn't care about animals? And truly, you should always know your audience, right? That's if you're going to speak to a person, one of the most important things that you should do first and foremost is do your research. Learn as much as you can about that person. What do they care about? And know your audience. So absolutely, you're going to talk to people who animal welfare is not their primary concern. And if you're coming to them and your biggest argument is, these animals are suffering, they're hurting, they're unnecessarily dying, and you think, well, what more do I need to say? Clearly, let's work on some solutions. It's true. There are some, city officials that are not going to be motivated by that, sadly. But everyone wants to live in a safe community, right? And I love how Tawny said before, working within the police department, that sometimes there's this perception that killing certain animals is keeping the community safe. So we've got to turn that on its head. But absolutely, 100%, keeping communities safe is about being innovative. It's about life-saving, and everyone wants to live in a neighborhood that's thriving, right? That's safe, that supports life. Why wouldn't you want to live in that kind of a neighborhood? I don't know if anybody's heard of the broken windows theory, but it's the reason why code enforcement is important, right? When you start to see neighborhoods on decline, you can start to count the broken windows and you can start to count other kinds of crime and things that happen. So stray dogs, that's an indication of, if how your community is doing caring for animals. If you're seeing a lot of stray dogs, dead animals on the side of the street, nobody wants to live in that community. Nobody wants to live in a community where they see chained dogs suffering, right? And no one's that's not a community that people want to move to. So you can connect it to other issues. How many people have seen the University of Denver study on no kill? Okay, great. This is, it's on Austin Pets Alive website. I definitely encourage you to download it. It's a very thorough research study done by the University of Denver. It's 69 pages, but we can definitely give you an abstract. But it showed that between a 6-year period from when Austin successfully reached the 90% benchmark of no-kill, the economic impact that had on a city. So now you're talking numbers, you're talking business and revenue, and any city leader is going to care about that. It increased, and some of the primary drivers for bringing in all this revenue was increased employment with animal services, and increased use of pet care and pet retail. So if you're trying to save lives, you're creating jobs. Now there's more people working on this issue. Now you have more animals alive. Now this is a safe community for our pets. So there's more people in the pet retail business, in the pet care business. So without question, this study showed that we in Austin were creating jobs. We're creating a better community by saving animals' lives. Google came right out and said, we want to be here because this community attracts a young, vibrant, pet-loving workforce. So that attracted our company to come and invest here. So a humane city is a city that innovates, cares about community health, and as a result, drives growth. So I mentioned some of the community health indicators before, and this is something that we're working on in Austin now too, is going back and collectively, retroactively compiling a lot of data. But again, for that city official that doesn't really care about saving animals' lives, collect that data. It's so important. The number of homes and families in the community, and then make it comparable to other data sets. Number of dog bites, decreased animals found, strays, deceased animals with microchips, stray animals taken in, number of confirmed cases of rabies in cats and dogs, number of animals assisted to the Pet Resource Center, that's here in Austin, and if they were able to be admitted to the shelter later or successfully kept in their homes. So this is some of the data that we're going back and collecting now to kind of update our community health indicators. But all of this is important data to show that when you're saving lives, you're increasing community health. And that is absolutely something that everybody cares about. And what if they still don't care? Don't agonize, get organized. Ultimately, if you're talking to an elected official, you're a constituent, that person should be elected to care about the things that you as a community care about. So as Katie said, bring them to your shelter, educate them, help them understand. If you're representing as a group, they can and should be motivated. And we were having some challenges with our video uploading, so I was going to have a video here about a passionate 11-year-old. But is anybody here from the city of Round Rock? No? Oh, our cameraman in the back, very cool. It's a great town just outside Austin, and I've had the distinct pleasure of knowing a fiery young lady. She's now 13, but when she was 11, she successfully worked in a coalition, first getting to know the animal control, then getting to know the city legislators, then getting to know the mayor, and this passionate 11-year-old worked in a coalition to update the animal services ordinances in the city of Round Rock, did a number of things, banning the use of chains, preventing retail stores, and the number and animals that were being bred and sold could not come from outside the city. Microchipping, all sorts of things, like just completely updated and renovated the city ordinances. An 11-year-old did that. So if an 11-year-old can do it, you can too. And I think something to always remember is that when lobbying doesn't work, it's really important not to take a loss personally. Your seemingly biggest foe could be your really biggest champion later, and people learn. I know sometimes in politics there's this idea that if you change your mind, you've flip-flopped, and somehow that's bad. And I've always found that so frustrating. No, people change their minds. You might take a position and later decide that you had the wrong information. That's called growth. That happens to me all the time, right? That's growing, that's being educated. I thought I knew something, then I was educated, then I experienced something else, and I learned that I had maybe not the whole story, that I was maybe not sitting on the right side of an issue, and I changed my mind. And guess what? Legislators do that too. So never burn that bridge, because it's really hard to go back and rebuild it. If you can't get someone with you, just know there's going to be another opportunity for me to work with this person. So I'm going to maintain a level of respect and camaraderie. So when that person does have that open mind, they can come back. And try again. It's the best rule of thumb when you're an advocate. And again, remaining credible, open-minded, and as Katie said, solutions-focused is huge. If you can do those things, I guarantee you, and it may take time, but I guarantee you that you will educate that lawmaker, you will educate that city official, and they will ultimately support you. Friends who sweat together stay together. So I knew she was going to she snuck that in. That was not an approved photo. Well, I think, again, listen, this work is hard. Building friendships is the best way to go about it. I tell everyone that my favorite part of working for animals is the incredible humans that I get the excuse to work with every day. So continue to lead with positive messaging, positive change, and thank you all so much for being here.